Hi guys, Jordan from P&B Campers. Just going to do your handover video on your Elddis Sunseeker. It's a Sunseeker 100 model and based on the Peugeot Boxer chassis. So under the bonnet you've got your engine coolant, power steering fluid and your washer fluid just behind that. Then got your brake fluid attached to the servo just behind there. Engine oil goes in through this cap just here, and the dipstick for that is just over here. Chassis plate for this particular model is just here in the middle, and your Fiat 249, which is the standard white paint finish on these cabs. The 249 will carry on throughout the whole vehicle, so if you ever needed any touch-up paint for any part of this van really, it will be 249 Fiat. Air filter sits inside this box just down here, and then you've got the positive terminal for the engine battery just here, and the negative or earthing point just here, because the engine battery itself on these cabs sits under the floor under this little cover here. So there's your jump starting point under the bonnet there. Bonnet release handle is this one just here inside the passenger door, and your diesel filling point just inside there as well. Your jack and wheel brace kit is just there underneath the passenger seat. Hopefully you shouldn't ever need that, but that's where it is if you do. Okay, so on the near side here we've got your battery and hookup section. So nearly all of the Elddis vehicles have this particular sort of layout, where you've got the leisure battery just here. Looks like a reasonably new leisure battery to me, but either way, leisure battery sits in here, and then you've got your hookup point just next door to that, so you can actually have the hookup plugged in and have it coming out through this little gap here and still have the locker completely closed. So that's what the idea is of that. So your hookup point is just there, leisure battery next door to it. You then got your boiler vent just here, so if you have your boiler lit up on gas, you will feel warm air coming out either side of this vent just here. And the cover for that, the cowl cover they call them, that's that one there, and that basically just stops any spiders getting in and all that. It's a winter cover essentially. Then got a 12-volt socket just here next door to the water point. Reason for that is if you had a submersible drop-in pump and a roll-away water tank, you could drop the pump into there, and your 12-volt power for that is just there, and that'll allow you to pump the water in through there. Otherwise, your fresh water just goes in just there, basically with a hose essentially, or a watering can. That's where you fill up your fresh water from. Next door to that, you've got the fresh and waste water drains. So you've got the fresh at the front, waste at the back. Fresh is always blue, waste is always grey. So that's what they are there. And you basically just twist those to turn them on or off. There you go. So Explorer group, which is the sort of Elddis group basically, and you can got your serial number and the maximum weight, so you got 3 ton on that. Full size Fiamma F45S awning up there, which is a nice spec one. And you can just about see from here, in fact I've got a ladder next to me, so I'll just show you. So on the roof, which is also nice and clean, just so you know that, you can see. You've got the flue just there for your space heater, TV aerial, solar panel, and your vent for the bathroom is over the back there. Other two in the middle are just the standard skylights. But yeah, roof, super clean. Really shiny up there as well, so that's always helps. I know it's obviously difficult to clean the roofs on these, we do them when we get them in here, but it's always really important. People don't really tend to think about it, but if you don't clean that roof, you know, eventually you will get a leak from somewhere because of the amount of build up there. So it is important to keep on top of that if you can. 2-bike rack just there, and your reversing camera up top. This little locker just here is to do with your toilet. So you've got the actual cassette itself, which you lift up the little green tab and pull the cassette out, and then you've got a bench seat style toilet in here, which means that you get the extra long cassette. So all you need to know really, in all honesty, is that you drain it out from here. So you just undo this cap and then you drain it out from here. You also use this as a bit of a guide for you when you're filling this back up with the blue fluid. So you can use about a cap, or because it's the bigger size, 2 caps full of this blue fluid back on, and give it a little shake around and push it back. When you're actually physically emptying it out, you should be holding the little green button there at the back. It's an air pressure release valve. And that's it. Above that, we've got this other one here, which is to do with your flush fluid. Now the flush fluid is a little bit low on here, but you've still got enough in it to use. Really that wants to be up here in the middle somewhere. Flush fluid is your pre-mixed pink fluid, and that just basically gets topped up through this little U-bend. So a lot of people get caught out with this as well. I'll just sort of explain it. The way that this system works, and it might sound a bit silly, but people do honestly get sort of, it's easy to make an assumption on it, but when you start filling this up, because it works on a U-bend, there is fluid in there, all right? And it might make you think that that's actually full up, but it's not. So when you start filling it up, that fluid will not move. It will just keep on, staying flat. So all you need to do is fill this up and just watch this move up. Don't watch what's going on in there. Watch this move up, and until that gets to about here, just keep filling it up. All right? Because even sometimes when this one's empty, you can still have fluid in here, and then people think that can't work out why there's no flush fluid. There you go. Right. So you've got great big windows on this particular van, so letting loads of light in, which is always good. So the gas locker down here, you've got space in here for 2 of these 6 kilo propane bottles if you should need them. If not, you can just have the one like we've got at the moment. So you've got a GOC regulator back there. Now these 2 bits here are just for our testing purposes, so you don't need to just put that back on. You don't need to do anything with those 2 at the bottom there. All you need to know is turning the bottle on is anti-clockwise round to the left. Turning it off is clockwise round to the right. Okay, so anti-clockwise on, clockwise off. You need to turn these bottles off before you start driving. That's always really important. And I will sort this out in a minute because that's been put on wrong. But yeah, so that's how you do that. So I'm going to leave the gas on for a minute just to show you a few bits working on the inside. So the cab, you've got the 5-speed manual gearbox. Because it's based on the Peugeot, you've got the steering wheel controls. So they're from there. As I said, the bonnet release handle is just over there when you open up the passenger door. Singled in stereo up there. Your heated controls are just there in the middle, and your hazard warning lights just there underneath that. You have got the electric adjusting mirrors, so you can select which mirror you want to move from this little bit here, and then basically just move this around like a little joystick to move the mirrors around. So, shutting you onto the bonnet. So if I just jump in now, I'll show you a few bits on the inside. These Elddis motorhomes, or British vehicles in general, do tend to have quite a few sort of factory fitted extras, if you like, in the sense that the space heater and the boiler both work on gas or electric as opposed to just gas, which is always helpful. Same as the fridge, that works on 3 different ways as well. So it gives you a bit of an option to, you can't just use this on a campsite, or you can't just use this out with gas on. You can do either. So that is the idea behind it. So shut the keys down a sec. Let's get some lights on here so you can see. The pollen's sort of getting me a bit today. It's pretty high. Okay, that light there, that'll be helpful. And that one, and this one. Right, so the first thing I'm going to show you is this kind of, I'm going to call it the control panel. I mean, really, this is the control panel down here in the bottom right corner. But in all honesty, all of this section here does stuff that's really important. So yeah, I just got this area here is kind of like the control section, if you like. The first thing I will just mention, with all Elddis motorhomes, or at least all the Sunseeker ones, I'm not sure if it's all Elddis motorhomes, but most of them at the very least, have got, I'll just open this door up so you can see, this little switch just down here, the black one. Now, if I turned that off, absolutely everything 12 volt would be isolated and turned off. So that there is a 12 volt isolator switch. So if you find that when you come into the van, when you turn this switch here on to aux, which is basically your main on and off switch, if you turn it up to aux and this arm doesn't move up to sort of 12 or 13 volts, I'd be pretty much certain that that switch down there is switched off. So just go down there, turn it on, and then it should spring to life. Okay, once you've got a little bit of power on there and it's showing you 12 volts there, you can then be sure that it's working, as long as it's up on aux and not on vehicle. It's really important. You can then check your water level, so your fresh level. So if I press on that and then look at the bottom scale, full, so we've got a full fresh tank. And then your submersible water pump, press that down, and then that will basically allow the pump to work. So when I say submersible water pump, what I mean is that it might sound self-explanatory, but basically instead of having an inline pump that works on pressure, you've got a pump that sits inside the tank which works on power. So you have to have that switch on there. Every single tap in this van, because of that, will have a little micro switch inside the tap just here, which basically when you open up the tap, opens up the micro switch, creates the circuit and allows the water to be pumped through from the pump. So if I just show you what I mean by that, at the moment absolutely naff all is going to be happening because the tap's down, the pump will not run. The moment I lift this tap up, whether it be hot or cold, whichever, the pump will just straight away immediately come straight on. So if we have a little listen, don't know if you can hear that. You can also probably see, all I'm doing by doing that, by the way, is just this. If you look at the control panel there, so that little green light there is telling us pump run. So that's telling us when the pump is physically working. First thing you want to do, assuming you've got some fresh water in the tank, if you want to use the boiler and get the water hot and all that sort of thing, this is the first thing you need to do. Turn your pump switch on, come over to the tap, pull the cold water through. So we've got good pressure there, no leaking, no air coming out of this, not coughing, not spluttering. And then turn it around to the left, to the hot. So you're getting a tiny bit of air there. And now it's gone. And now we can turn that off. So doing that and seeing the water coming through like that with good pressure on the cold and the hot side proves that this boiler down here is full. If I pulled the tap just then and the pump was running and nothing came out the hot side, then it means the boiler isn't full or you haven't got enough water in the fresh tank. So it's really important. The reason I show you that first, I always show that first, is that if you try and light the boiler up on the gas, which I'll show you how to do in a minute, but if you try and light the boiler up on gas to try and heat the water up, and there's no water inside the boiler because you haven't checked that, then what will happen after no time at all is that boiler will just overheat because it's basically not heating anything up. All right, so it's really important to check that. On that same note, down by the boiler, you have also got this little yellow handle. Now, this is pretty standard on all motorhomes. They come in all different sort of styles and shapes and sizes, but this is probably the most regular one. Now, the position that it's in now, laying down flat, is basically closed off. So any water that goes to the boiler is going to stay in the boiler and fill it up. If I lifted it up, all the water that's inside the boiler right now would just drain off onto the floor. So the only reason that's there, and the only reason you'd ever need to use that, is if you wanted to drain the boiler out, and the only reason you would do that is, for example, if it was coming up to winter right now, and I thought to myself, right, I'm not going to be using the van over winter, I'm going to leave it in storage, or I'm going to leave it parked up, whichever, then you need to drain the boiler out from there. And in fact, drain the boiler out from there, leave it open. Same with the fresh and the wastewater taps on the outside. And also, if you really want to do it properly, open all those valves up and leave them open. Same as the taps. Leave all the taps in the open position and it stops any ice being able to form up there and sort of like crack pipes and all that. So leave everything in the open position, and that is including the boiler vent just down there, the drain, sorry. So that's the sort of important bits there on that. These two to the left of this main control panel here is to do with your TV aerial. So you've got the aerial socket there and a 12-volt point and a 240-volt socket next door to that. So you can either use a 12-volt telly, a 240-volt telly, and your aerial point's just there. In regards to that, the aerial on the roof, you haven't got to do anything with that to get it to sort of work. All you need to do is turn this button on here so you get your little blue light come on, and that is your TV aerial booster, and that'll send you a decent signal down to that point there, and then turn it off when you don't need it. In this wardrobe as well, you've got all of your carpets, which has basically been hoovered off and taped up and put in here, just so you can see that the floor was in really good nick. And you've got your trip switches as well. So if you plug the mains cable into the van and realise nothing's working, have a little look in here and make sure all the trips are in the upright position. You've also got your paperwork in here. And I will just say as well, I mean, I know this is a wardrobe and it might sound really silly, but you need to try your very best not to, I mean, I know in a lot of cases it's going to be impossible, but this cover just here is the cover for the vent for the heater directly below it. So that's basically an exhaust. Now, no carbon monoxide or anything like that is going to come into the van because we've checked it and it's all completely sealed up and absolutely fine. But this will still get a little bit warm if you're using the heater, you know, constantly during the winter, for example. This area will still get warm. This is a heat protector for it, and it's also got heat protector around it. But just, you know, for your own sake, try your best not to sort of touch that and all that sort of thing. Anyway, I just thought I'd mention that. Okay, so I'll just go through these bits here whilst we're here, and then I'll go on to the other bits. So you've got these two black switches just here. Now these both relate to the thing that they're next door to, okay? So this one here, so these two at the bottom are both to do with your water heater, okay? So this boiler down here, the two at the top, both relate to the heater down here. And so the first thing I'm going to show you is the boiler. So essentially all it is if you have the electric hookup plugged in and you wanted to heat the water up inside the boiler via the electric only, you can turn this switch on here and that'll just basically immediately start heating up the water that's inside of it via the electric element. Okay, now at the moment I haven't got the hookup plugged in, so that's doing absolutely naff all, but I'll turn it off anyway. That's really important that you have to make sure that you turn that off when you don't want it to be used, because again, you run into the same sort of problem where if you plugged a hookup into the van, forgot that was on and hadn't checked that the boiler was full, and if, for example, you plug a hookup in, the water heater turns on in the electric and it's actually empty, then you're going to run into a whole world of problems where that's going to overheat. So only turn any of this on when you specifically want it on. All right, don't leave any of it on just in case or anything like that. It's really important you turn it all off whenever you're done. Next door to it, the one here that says Ultra Store, is the boiler on gas. Now all you need to do to get that to work is make sure that the cover is off on the outside first, like I showed you, and then turn this dial around once. If you listen, straight away, solenoid kicked in, allowed the gas through, and it lit straight up. If this doesn't light up, all the time that's lit, you have a little green light in there. If it doesn't light up, you get a little red light in the middle come on, and that'll just basically tell you it's not lit, try again, and that's it. So, boiler on 240-volt electric, boiler on gas, and that's it turned off. The two above it, like I said, they relate to your heating system. Now, these two are both literally just to do with the 240-volt electric, okay? The way to heat the van up via the gas is actually physically on top of the heater down here, which I'll show you after this. So if you've got the electric hookup plugged into the vehicle and you want to heat the van up via that, all you have to do is turn this switch on and then come over to here. Now all that will happen when I turn this on right now is it will flash and it will go off because I haven't got the power plugged in. But all you need to do, turn this socket on, like I said, assuming you got the hookup plugged in, turn the socket on, and then choose either 500, 1000 or 2000, and that's the amount of watts that the elements basically use in the back of the heater. Now, again, this is all just advice, but in my opinion, I personally would not use that on 2000, because if you work it out into amps, say for example you were at a campsite and you were plugged into a 10 amp pole, you know, your hookup was plugged into a 10 amp pole, you've got then 10 amps to play with until that will trip, until you overload it. If you put this space heater on to 2000, you'll immediately be drawing about 7.8 amps, as well as obviously the fact that the battery charger will also be on, so that'll be about half an amp. If you've got the fridge on the electric, that's about half an amp. And then anything plugged into any sockets, if you plug a kettle into that socket over there, you're going to be drawing about 6 amps. So just straight away, by using that on 2000, you've got absolutely no wiggle room for anything else to be plugged in. So in my opinion, use it on 500 or 1000. 500 will use about 2.2 amps, and 1000 is about 4.5. So switch on here, and then either 500 or 1000, and that's it. It will just start heating up out of here. So that is how you use those bits there. Make sure that you turn it off when you're done with it. And then the last bit at the top is just your solar controller, and literally all it does is tell you what is happening with the solar panel and the battery. So the battery's got 12.5 volts in it right now, which if you look down there is exactly right. And the solar's chucking in basically nothing because we're under the canopy, so there's no sunlight on it. So that's how it, you know, it just tells you what's going on. You don't have to press any buttons with it, and there's nothing on the back of it. No. So that is that. So the space heater itself, like I said, using it on the mains is totally different up there on the ultra heat switch. But if you want to light it up on the gas, it's really easy, but it is a lot easier with 2 hands. It's a bit awkward to do it with 1 hand. So I'll just basically show you what you need to do. So you've got this little peephole down here, which when I press on this little piezo igniter, which yes is a bit noisy, but that's how they all are, to be honest. When I press on that, if you look down here, I don't know if you saw it just there. I know it happened twice, I think. You can just about see a spark in there. Okay, so all you have to do to light this up on the gas is turn this little dial around here to about 2 or 3, push it down and light it up with the other finger. There you go. So all I did was I pushed it down and pressed the piezo at the same time. I'm now still holding it, and you can just about see in there now. Nice pilot flame, nice and blue. When I lift up on this and turn it around to about 7 or 8, the main flame will kick in. So if you watch what happens, I've now lifted up, I'm going to turn it around. There you go. When that starts to happen, when it starts to go out, push down again. Hold it for a minute to allow it to warm up. And now I'm going to let go again. So what we're basically doing is trying to get the main flame to come on and stay on, which is going to do now, I think. Hasn't been used for a little while by the looks of it. There you go. So that will now stay on for as long as you leave it. And all I've done is push the dial round to about 7 or 8. Okay. So that's how you light this up on the gas. It's pretty well the old style, to be fair, but it's just what this one came with from new. So piezo igniter on the left hand side, whilst pushing down on the little dial there at about 2 or 3, allow it to light up on the pilot flame and hold it in for a little while lift it up and turn it around to about 9, 10, about 8 or 9 basically. All right, and then you can leave that on as long as you want. The only other bit that there is about this is that there's a fan on it as well. So push that little button there to the left, and then you can adjust your fan speed just there, and that'll start pumping around any warm air to any little circular vent that's dotted around the vehicle. All right, so if I turn the fan off now, I will then turn this off all the way back down to 0. And as you can see, no more flame. So that is how you use the heater. Now, I didn't want that on for any longer than I had to because it's nearly 30 degrees today and I don't fancy it. So yeah, that's that bit over there done. Over the cab you have got the bed as well, so the ladder comes on and hooks on to here, nice and easy to get up then. What have we got? So this switch just here does the lights for in the bathroom, just in case you didn't know that. I will go through the bits in there with you in a minute, but I'll just shut that door for a sec. Right, if I just pop this down. Oh, come on. Oh, I need to do it with 2 hands in a minute. Okay, so the fridge is very similar in regards to the gas. It's very similar to the space heater in the sense that you've got a piezo igniter again, and you've got a little peephole for the flame, which you can see in there, nice and blue. So if I switch this off now, off of gas, which is down here at the bottom, I'll turn it off all the way up to the top to turn the fridge completely off. Now, like I said, the gas works in a very similar way, but if you've got the electric hookup plugged into the van, my advice to you would be turn it once to the right and have it on the electric hookup symbol, and that will basically just start cooling the fridge down as soon as you do that. You've then got below that this battery one here. Now this is when your engine's running only, so that won't be doing anything at all right now because I haven't got the engine running, as you can probably tell. So the reason you would need the 12-volt one there for the engine running is that you've already pre-cooled the fridge either via the gas or the mains, and then you've switched it over to 12-volt just for when you're driving. When you get to where you're going, switch it back to one of the other two again. All right, that's how these fridges have to be used basically. So as I said, these two are super easy. It's just a case of literally selecting it, so mains hookup or when you're driving. The one at the bottom, the gas, as I said, a little bit more complicated, but all you have to do is turn it down to the gas. Make sure that your gas is switched on at the bottle first, obviously. But it's a very similar idea to the heater in the sense that when you push down on this, it allows the gas through, and when you push down on this, it lights it up. So it really is as easy as that. So all I'm going to do is, like I just said, push in on that and click on the igniter at the same time. And if you watch down there, I'm pushing in. First time, lit straight up. Now I'm just going to hold on to it for a few seconds. Still going, and then I'm going to let go of it. So I have now let go of that, and it's still on. So after a couple of hours, that fridge will be absolutely freezing cold, and then that's it. That is all you have to do. To turn it off the gas, like I said, all you need to do is twist this back, and if you watch, gas goes straight out. That's it. Not much to show you in there, just storage. Okay. So the 3-burner hob at the top has an ignition. It doesn't have an ignition up here, but it has this little switch just here on this bottom section. You might not think they're related, but they are. They're on the same system. So when you press this igniter in, it does the ignition for the 3 burners, the grill and the oven all at the same time. So to light any of these up, you will need 2 hands because you can't press that and do these. Okay, but that's how you use that. I don't feel, I never really feel like I need to show you the grill and the oven, because it's just, I mean, the only thing I will say is obviously you have to have the grill door open when you're using it, but it's no different at all to a household one, so I never really run through those. You've got the 3 gas isolators over there. So the one at the bottom is the oven and grill, in the middle is the 3-burner hob, and the one at the top is the fridge. So if you wanted to isolate the gas from any of those specific appliances, you can do it from there. And the last bit I need to show you is the bathroom. So I don't really want to step in there because it's so clean. It's literally just been cleaned. Right, so, which I'm just going to have to. So, you've got the standard mixer tap, left and right, hot and cold. Again, that's another thing that I don't really tend to run through because it's just a tap. It's nice and easy. And then we've got the toilet, which is the only bit I ever really tend to, you know, run through. So again, it's so easy, but until you know how, you might not realise. So you've got this button just here. Push that down, and that puts your flush fluid around the bowl. Pull this towards you, drains it out into the cassette, and then push it back. And that literally is it. That's all you have to do. So, I think I have shown pretty much all there is. I mean, I don't know. Just having a little look around now, see if there's anything else. I don't think there is. So, hopefully that made sense, all the bits and pieces. The boiler sections are normally the most difficult to run through, but hopefully that all made sense to you. If there is anything you think you weren't sure about, or anything you want going through again, just let us know. But otherwise, we look forward to seeing you soon to collect your van. Thanks very much.